Welcome back to our course on Excel 2013 Advanced. In this section we're going to look at references to tables and to parts of a table. And this actually presents a very powerful way not only of referring to tables themselves, but to using tables elsewhere within Excel to make things more powerful and more flexible. Let's start by looking at the answer in example 12 to the exercise I set at the end of the previous section. I'm going to assume that you've managed to put in all of those references to the names of the columns in this table, okay, but I want to look at the formula in payment due here, H4. Now you may have been quite surprised about how straightforward this answer was, because basically we put in an if statement and say if H12 is less than 100, depending on your currency of course, it'll be whatever your currency unit is, pounds, dollars, euros. If the number of currency units is less than 100, then the payment due date is C2, that's the day that the invoice was created, plus 15. Now don't forget, dates are stored as numbers of days, usually since the 1st of January 1900. So to find a date 15 days later than a given date, you just add 15 to that number. If the value of the invoice is 100 currency units or more, then you add 30. So it really is a very straightforward thing to do in Excel, and that formula works absolutely fine. Now generally speaking, when I'm setting up any formula in Excel, I like to avoid using just straightforward cell references, because reading a formula like that, you look at it and you really have to work out, well, what's H12 and what's C2 and so on. It's really good if you can actually use names. Now I'm sure you know how to define and use names in Excel. And we could, for instance, define a name here for that field, C2, and call that the invoice date, and then we would say invoice date plus 15, invoice date plus 30. It all makes a lot more sense. But what we're going to look at in this section is referencing items in tables, and particularly from outside a table. We've seen how to do it inside. That was the purpose of the work we did earlier on, particularly in the last section, related to using these columns names to refer to cells within the table. But from outside you can also refer to cells, columns, rows, in fact anything within a table, and there is a set of rules about how you do that. And the basis of the set of rules is, first of all, you need to know the name of the table. And of course the name of this table is the order details table. So let's just click in there. Of course it's order details. Now I can refer to just about anything in this table from outside the table using a structured way of referencing. And what I'm going to do here, first of all, is refer to that cell, that is the total price sum right at the bottom of the total price column. I'm going to put that in this formula rather than H12. So rather than say H12, I want to be able to say the sum of the total price column. So first of all, let's just delete H12 and let's click within the cell. And you will see straight away that Excel really does pretty much all the work for us. So it says inside the if statement, order details. Now that's the name of the table. And if you're referencing something in a table from outside the table, you need to have the table name. If you're inside the table, then you don't need to put that table name if you're referring to something in the same table. Obviously if you're looking at something in a different table, then you would need to put the table name. But in this case we're looking at a cell outside, we're looking at the formula in the cell H3, and therefore because H3 isn't in the table, we need to put the table name in, order details. That's then followed by a pair of square brackets. Inside the square brackets we put what are called qualifiers. Now you can have one or more qualifiers, and what Excel does is to combine those qualifiers to work out what you actually want. Now although it's put here hash totals in square brackets as one qualifier, and total price in square brackets as another qualifier, let's deal with total price first. When you refer to total price in square brackets in a table from outside, you're really referring to the total price column. When you in addition put in the qualifier of hash totals, you're really saying I want the thing that's in the total price column, but that's in the hash totals row, and that is H12 at the moment. Now obviously if I inserted more rows into this order details table, or in another invoice using the same approach, then that total might be in a different position in column H. But the important thing here about using the table reference is it doesn't really matter how many items there are in the order details table, because it will cope with that, because you're referring to that total using a reference within the table. You're not even giving a column reference there. You're not really saying column H, you're saying whichever column is the total price column. So if I later change this table to introduce a new column or take a column out, as long as I still had a total price column, that formula would still work. Now I believe that very significantly improves that formula, because it really says to you, once you're used to reading these, that you're looking at the total of the total price column in the order details table, and that's the basis on which you're doing a test to see if the value of it is less than or more than 100, and particularly if you replaced C2 by a conventional Excel name, say you put invoice date in there, somebody looking at this will probably pretty much understand what this was doing without needing to worry too much about exactly what the cell and column references are. Okay, let's finish off this section with one more example of this, just to show that it's pretty straightforward, pretty flexible way of using information that's in tables. Let's suppose that I want to put a phrase underneath the table just saying there are so many items in this order or in this delivery, thank you for your business. Now I'm going to put that as a formula, so I'm going to put it in that cell D14. I'm going to say equals, and it's there are space and then ampersand to concatenate. Now I'm going to put in the number of items in the delivery, which I click on there, that gives me order details, that's the table reference, the total of the quantity column, and then another ampersand, another double quote, another space, and then I'll say items in this order. Thank you for your business. Okay, let's tick that. And there we are, it's automatically totaled the number of items, and it reads just as a regular phrase. Now I'm not going to dwell for a long time on all of the different qualifiers. One thing perhaps I should just point out to you, let's go back into that formula again. When I'm working with any part of a table reference, if you are partway through typing a table reference in, say I do here, do an open square bracket, then Excel 2013 does offer me a list of the available qualifiers. You can find out more about those qualifiers in Excel Help, but clearly the first batch correspond to the columns in the table, and the last qualifiers, hash all, hash data, hash headers, hash total, they'll basically do things like show you the total of the selected column. So I refer you to the help for more information about some of those qualifiers. That's it on table references. In the next short section we're going to take a quick look at table styles in Excel 2013, so please join me for that.